Good morning, everyone. A bright and happy July day here. We're joined by Jamie Strauss, who's from Digby, and Digby is the data research, and mainly it's an ESG platform for the mining industry. And I'm fortunate to have done a video and met with Jamie Strauss 2 years ago now at Minds of Money in London, and was fascinated as this was well known in our industry. ESG was really coming alive. But you've tackled this whole platform and this whole strategy that we talk about, and BlackRock talks about, you name it. How's it going? What's developed since we first spoke 2 years ago? Let's get caught up to speed on all the developments.
Well, it might take a year to do that, but welcome to my wonderful museum here. A kind invitation of a guest to come and stay with them for do this great show. So thank you. I guess, where do we start? Well, I'll start backwards. We got invited earlier this year to present to the G7 by the Department of Trade and Industry of the United Kingdom government, really to showcase what we were trying to do within mining and trying to help mining effectively move up the curve of ESG, from the smallest company all the way to the biggest, to make sure that it was right-sized. So that's really kind of what's happened in the last few weeks. How did that evolve? Well, Andrew, when we first met a few years ago, we were talking about our first product, which was research. That's still going on. But when I launched that at the beginning of last year, I was approached by BlackRock and I was approached by Orion Mine Finance. For those who don't know, the largest private equity group within the mine industry, to come up with a solution for the junior mining sector with regards to ESG. And when we did a bit of digging and understanding, and I'm on the board of a couple of companies, I know what we were going through ourselves in those cases. When we were digging and going into that, really we identified there were 2 or 3 key issues which were a problem. The whole industry wanted to disclose on ESG, but they didn't know how and what to disclose. And because there are 42 different standards, global standards in the world, nobody knew what to disclose to. And the mining industries are there to dig something in the ground and explore and find new commodities. They're not there to kind of go and be bureaucrats. So first of all, we need to do a right size and standardize the structure so that the management of these companies could disclose, could get up to speed, and then ultimately go forward from there and be rewarded for the action that they take. On the other side is the fund managers who, and I can tell you, there's a wall of money looking to come into this industry. There is a wall of money looking to come from ESG funds, from impact investors, funds that have never invested in the mining industry, but can see copper, lithium, rare earths, and the others making a difference to the world and effectively being the precursor to effectively a transition to a sustainable future. So if they're to come in, they need a credible means to track ESG from the smallest company through to the biggest company. There are lots of standards that anybody can effectively disclose to, but we need to have a credible, right-size, best practice approach for every company to get on easily, cost-effectively, disclose, showcase, be rewarded, and then get the benefits of that, not just for the companies themselves, and there will be a big benefit of that with regards to, funds coming in and everything, but also with regards to local communities, to the investors, to all sorts of different people coming in. We just need to make sure that we have a standardized system for that to happen.
It's such a critical platform and a pace, because it is that cornerstone. Because like you said, everyone in this space and even generalist investors are becoming aware that we require all of these things from the earth, this copper, the lithium, and whatnot. Yeah. We know we need it. We know that this shift is happening and it's heading towards its electric future. How do we get there and whatnot? And also people kind of see, well, we also know there's people want to invest in these things, but why aren't they? And this is the focal point of, we know lots of companies are doing lots of good work and they've got their own regulatory and guidance what they do. But if we had a standardized and we had a gatekeeper who's third party, like yourself, who's working together to provide basically a scorecard so that the company can highlight, listen, hey, we've done it. We're doing everything we should. And the funds then are able to quickly evaluate and go, these ones fall in our parameters, we can invest. That also, it highlights to younger people like Austin as well, as then money's flowing in and they're going to be rewarded for doing the right thing, which is everyone wants that.
Yeah. Well, I'm looking for another salesperson. If you want a job, that's you're welcome. You're doing a great job. Look at a typical company presentation, and we all know that the junior industry lives hand by mouth with regards to the institutions. But if you look at a typical company presentation, everyone is obliged to effectively put ESG in there. They're saying the same thing, and they're doing a lot of good. There's nobody saying nobody within our industry is saying this industry is doing anything other than good. We've got a social license. We've been doing it for 20, 30 years at least. The Equator Principles started that process off in 2003, but we can't showcase it. And at the moment, the presentations that you're seeing in the company decks are all trying to justify what they're doing. But there's no third-party validation, and we're humans. We're not going to put the things which we're not quite doing yet, or with the holes that we're missing. So what we need to do is to have a positive, constructive approach, which all parties of the industry, whether it be institutions, whether it's major mining companies who are looking at M&A and are feeling frustrated by the lack of available due diligence, because this is an evolution, this is a new thing, and they need to be able to get access to that standardized information to mitigate the risk going forward, and so that it's not going to come back and effectively bite them in the ass. So this was designed for the problems that we knew about, and that's really important. So that we've designed and engineered and developed it so that the juniors can effectively and the mid caps and the seniors, if they want to, can effectively know what to disclose and ultimately have the other side of the equation, the funds, the local stakeholders, the credit committees, all of these other groups. They need that information in a standardized form. They don't need to spend weeks, months, and years trying to work it all out from different parts of the area.
And it's an enormous, onerous undertaking to do that. And often, like, sometimes companies are just doing it on their own, or they're trying to source it out themselves. And then even from an investing standpoint, is if they have to go into every meeting trying to track down parts of information, it's a lot of wasted time whenever there could be a focal point with this ESG platform, particularly. Because, I mean, you've got your research arm as well, and that kind of product with Digby that's running, and that we talked about 2 years ago. But this ESG initiative, there was just...
So I'm going to jump in because you're really touching on an important thing.
Okay.
It's a bit of a labyrinth. You know, there are 42 standards out there, and the way it is at the moment is that nobody. Let's just take the Rio Tintos, the BHPs, the Barracks, and all the rest of it. Nobody's on a single standard. So that you've got these algorithms going off with MSCI, Sustainalytics, which are going across all of this stuff, but largely it's backward looking. Largely it's compliance driven.
Yes.
So, and they're non-compatible. So MSCI comes up with a totally different score to that of Sustainalytics. Okay. So there is a credibility issue going on a bit there. Okay. What we want to do is to have management embracing ESG, and George Salamis from Integra yesterday gave a great article on LinkedIn as to what the benefits are, far better than I can do. And I would recommend your readers to go and read onto that. And want to embrace ESG disclosure. We're already doing the ESG. Embrace ESG disclosure. Do it effectively in a way that is straightforward and simple, so that everybody can be on that same standard. So that when you've got the people, the bean counters in the fund management group and everything, who want to put money into you, but just need to be able to know what they're kind of getting involved in with this new world of assessment, then it's easy for them to do, rather than, is it SASB? Is it GRI? Is it Equator? Is it this? Is it that? Still do them. If you want to pick one and do one, you can. But all you're doing is getting a stamp of approval, which is not comparable against anybody else. This puts everybody on the same thing. It makes it easier for the management, the CEOs, the geologists, everybody to effectively do it. You can be effectively ESG endorsed in 4 weeks. 4 weeks. And the work that you've got to do is 1 week. We take 3 weeks to assess it manually. Yeah, you can literally put somebody onto it, do it in a week. It's easy. It's done.
So how did you get invited to G7? How did that? Because that's a big step. That's a huge credibility factor. However you want to put it, is that if you've got the ear of that group, that's a big step.
So it's really important because, it's not just Canada, the UK, the US. It included Australia, which is obviously another big mining firm. And this time around, it also included Singapore as well. So it was, a large part of the mining community which were there. We got invited because the Department of Trade and Industry, which is the UK trade body, part of the government, was aware of what Digby's trying to do, because we're trying to have some influence at COP26, which is happening in November, which is the big UN environmental conference going on in November. And we were involved with them to try and get it. At the moment, mining is not part of COP26, and they're still trying to get it on board. So we were trying to help them on that with a couple of other groups that we're working with. And the head of the DTI mining side of it came to me and suddenly said, this is critical to help us at G7 as well, because this brings the whole of the mining industry together as an industry globally. So the UK Department of Trade and Industry were a major part of supporting the tailings initiative, which came out, was it last year or the year before, which ICMM, the Church of England and the Swedish Pensions Board all got together on. So they wanted to then support something else, which looked as though it was going to bring a global thing together.
So this, I mean, it's a huge undertaking, and that's congratulations to be able to get involved in that. I mean, the amount of work to try to get there is enormous. But how does it look then? Because I know I talk to CEOs and presidents all the time, and every one of them, and it's not just they're interested in the environment. They live in Vancouver, they know it's beautiful, they love it. They also know that there's this flood of money, and like, how can we get it? How easy is it for them if some of these guys are watching, they go, okay, wait a second, this is exciting. Do I sign up with Digby? Do I call Jamie, or what do I do here to get on board? Because they're probably trying to figure out themselves. We think we're doing the right thing.
Yeah, it's a good question, because actually up until, I think it's going to be tomorrow, it could be Friday, we've actually been on beta test. So you actually, frustratingly, because I don't like having to call people up to say, can I get access to something? So up until now, or until the end of this week, next 2 days, you had to kind of get our approval to find the way into it, because we were on beta test. That's coming off in 2 days' time. We've had enough people go through it. We've now got the development framework as well as the exploration framework. So that covers 85% of the market. They're now both live. The development framework went live this week. So once we get off that beta test in 2 days' time, you literally can sign in as a corporate. You don't need to get any permissions. You don't need to get any passwords or anything. Sign in, go into the ESG section, invite your team on board, make sure your assets in there. If not, make sure that it's easy, kind of 2 minutes to make sure that they're there. Everything with a PEA or scoping study should be in there already. If they're exploration, they just need to put them in. And then basically you're off. We give you the frameworks for free. So you don't need to engage with us. By all means, call us. We're not a platform where there's no talking. By all means, engage with us. Just send us an email on contact@thedigby.com. And you're in. You can get the blueprints completely to know what to disclose for yourself. Take as long as you like over it. Then when you're finished uploading the answers, then it goes into a PDF to your board of directors for approval. It does require board of director approval, which covers off the board's obligations under new corporate governance rules. And then it gets submitted to us, and that's then actually when we raise an invoice to go forward.
Wow, that's absolutely brilliant. And now, kind of just to shift it a little bit here, Jamie, how does everything with ESG and everything you guys are doing at Digby, how can we use that as a tool to get younger people like myself more involved in the mining industry and more interested in ESG and this new path forward? Okay, Austin, it's a really nice soft area. This to me is one of the great, we're trying to help all these mining companies address the big problem of ESG. So that's easy. That's nicely, that's done. The output is really the kind of next thing. So once it comes to us in terms of the submission, it goes off to our ESG consultants. There are 2 sets of eyes to go over it. You then get a full report back. It takes about 3 weeks at the moment. We hope to get that to 2 weeks. And then in essence, the scores basically become live. Now, we allow all the companies to hide for the first year because some people are concerned by a single score. It's a journey. We're not going to all be triple A's on day one. So we allow hiding for the first year. You get a certificate to say you've done it. You've got the report in the company can send it out. But once it is public, either immediately or anytime in that year afterwards, what I love is the fact that all these millennials who are not prepared to go into mining at the moment
can suddenly see, oh, that company is embracing ESG. It's been getting better and better and better every year in the nature side or biodiversity or emissions or whatever it happens to be. And it can track that company. It can see who's engaged, who's embracing, who's moving forward. And then you can, I think, I'd be amazed if we can't improve our recruitment on that. I mean, my own marketing manager was completely anti-mining, and she was encouraged actually by a fellow Vancouver and worked for me because of the ESG thing. She's now completely in favor of mining because she can see how important mining is to the world. But only those companies, of course, which are embracing ESG.
Well, yeah, which is so important to do as well. And I think it ties into a lot of what Andrew and I always talk about wanting to find these companies and these boards and managements that are looking after themselves environmentally, that are solving these critical problems. How are your guys' scores ranked? So is it like you mentioned AAA? So is it like a single A, double A, AAA? Is that how you guys do your scoring?
Yeah, so the scoring is similar to very similar to that. The scoring is basically, there's an amalgamated score. And then it's broken down. It's broken down to the corporate, which for an exploration company relates to about 28 questions. And then for each project, there are about 40 questions, again, for an exploration company. And the project questions are split between about 60% context and 40% action. The context you can't really change as a management. You can obviously change the action ones. And so the scores come out, they're transparent. And the nice thing is, because you've got each project being contextualized within the world, then effectively you can then, as a fund manager, compare and contrast. Okay, I want to look at a higher risk or a higher rated risk project, see how management is doing relative to that. I mean, imagine a DRC project, where that management team is doing really everything it can to improve local conditions, improve the water outflow, improve the quality, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. They need to be regarded as being best in practice. Doesn't matter whether or not they're in the DRC or not. You should be encouraging mining in the DRC. So it's really important to have that contextualized structure. And the nice thing is, if that company sells that asset or moves that asset on, the score goes with that asset to that next owner.
Okay.
That's interesting too. I was going to say the score goes with the project wherever it happens to change hands and whatnot. And someone could look at it and go, we think we can do better with that asset. And that it breaks down mining into a much more interesting and more palatable for a person too, especially young, because now we're seeing this whole like integration of innovation, data storage, and it quickly being able to have a standardized way to look to say, where are the places that I should be looking, and where can we help? Because someone might say, like you're saying, I only want to focus on companies that might have a low score, but they're in tough areas, but they're really trying to push it up. And that they would be encouraged to go, my result isn't necessarily, yes, we'll make some money, but it's that we're actually literally affecting here, moving the score from an A to a AAA. That would get someone going a lot more than it's just sheer metrics of we made some money.
And the cost of capital will come down for that company.
Yes.
As this evolves and evolves, doesn't matter if it's a small company or a big company, the cost of capital will come down because it must do. And so there's a real opportunity at the moment for companies to get on board early. And I'm just not talking specifically to do with Digby or anything else like that. ESG is evolving fast. And with something like this, you can actually really benefit, because you can get a lot of the stuff that comes out of it can benefit the company in terms of risk management now, and get on board and get in front of new pools of capital earlier than you would otherwise do that. And that to me is really exciting. Yeah. Look,
trillions.
The pool of capital which our mining industry works in cannot even be seen. It's so small compared to what's out there. And so, and we cannot be worse rated on the S&P E&S ranking. We are last equal with oil and gas. So we are talking about a tiny pool of capital, worst rated. So there's only upside, but we need to prove that in order to begin to access that.
That's what I find so exciting about this, is that someone is taking the lead, taking the charge, and create the, I guess I'm going to say, the standard certificate, and hopefully going forward, that's what it will be as well, to pull this all together and then take that initiative to present to governments, to present to huge funds, and say, listen, we're listening, and we've created that scorecard. And once companies see that as well, and they see this video, they'll go, holy smokes, this is my, their self-interest. This is my entrance into getting in front of funds that never would meet me, never talk to me, never be interested. And it sets another parameter for them to really go, listen, it isn't just all about the assay results. Of course, we have to expand the assay results, but if we're doing this correctly, we're going to be rewarded.
Well, as I think it was a fantastic interview with Mark Bristow and Evie Hamber at PDAC earlier this year, and they're really highlighting a lot of this stuff. And E is binary. I mean, you're either improving your emissions or you're worsening them. That's relatively easy. The nature and the biodiversity part of E is not so binary. That's more difficult, so that's important. The S is very, very important for this industry. We touch so many communities around the world, actually so often in very positive ways, which do not come out. But there's a lot more work that can obviously be done there, and this will effectively help. And a lot of people come to me, Andrew, and say, okay, how do we know that we're then going to get recognized? Look,
yes.
I can't promise of putting every single company in front of BlackRock or whatever. What I can say, though, is that the support I'm getting from the major institutions around the world, and literally there are 2 a day of big institutions. This morning was a big Asian bank, for instance. So the support I'm getting gives me the confidence to say that this will definitely move needle in a very significant way for this industry. In a year's time, I hope I can say it is the standard. Let's see when we get there. But I think the important thing to say is that this will begin to change the needle also with regards to M&A and other stuff. So the money will start to flow into that mid-cap area and the big-cap area as people get more confidence, and the valuation of those producing companies will go up, means you get more valuation or more currency to effectively then address what we all know is an M&A field at some stage, where just whenever it gets going, with regards to copper assets and lithium assets and rare earth assets, all of these companies, which will begin to benefit from that greater valuation higher up as confidence builds in this industry that we are doing what we know we've been doing, but now we're beginning to prove it.
Yeah, having that synergy, I think, as it moves forward is so critical too, especially because a lot of companies that like to say, well, how do I get my unearned media? Like, how do I get a PR out of this? How can I get a news story? That would be the old approach. How can I get someone to write about how we helped? And it's great, and a lot have. But this once again, standardizes it, takes it away from them and it has it a third-party research for any journalist, researcher, analyst can go in and go, oh, they've already done the work for me. Here's the data. I don't even have to call the company. I can ask them for a quote, but I don't even have to. I can go look and see, yeah, they're doing it. This is really great.
It's just a third-party validation, which is just, the weight of third-party validation against frankly, a confusing, complex, costly process, which takes up a lot of time, which is what most of us don't have at the moment. What do you want? Do you want simplicity, which is regarded and respected, or do you want confusion and complexity, which takes up a lot of time? To me, it's that's pretty clear cut.
Yeah, and especially whenever people are waking up to the realization that it isn't. It's required. Like there's critical metals and elements. It's critical for our shift. So we never want people to feel like, oh, they're going to force this upon us. It's like, no. Because the sector is so small and there's not that much money in it, really. With the inflow of it, you could have the tightest regulations possible. It's going to help innovation, how we find things, how we do it properly. There is no cutting of costs because there's an abundance of money going in. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy to some extent. And once again, we're talking like $1 trillion for this whole ESG strategy from BlackRock alone. They're talking about.
So I experienced as a board member before I started this, the bureaucracy and the pain in the neck and all the rest of it that goes with which goes with ESG, or what was believed to be going with ESG. Then you looked into it, and then you begin to kind of say, well, what could come out of this? To me, if it's done effectively and efficiently, which reduces the time which people look, everybody's going to have to do this. That's nothing to do with me. Everyone's going to have to do it. If you want money, you're going to have to do it. And frankly, it's not to ignore the private investors, who I'm sure you've got a lot of viewers of private investors. The private investors, mainly the younger private investors, Austin, your gang, I guess, They were the ones who started this social movement.
Exactly.
This wasn't so. So this is, you might be able to get away with it for another year or so, but ultimately people are getting older, and those people want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. And the industry has been doing the right thing. The thing is how do we showcase that, and how do we make sure that we make it appropriate and adaptable, and we can actually see the difference on the ground and in the boardroom. That's what needs to be done. And I really would say, from having looked at these questions in detail, is that, and the way these questions are asked, is it really, and of course the transparency of the process, is it really does pull areas forward and go forward, much of which of course has already been done, but it allows that to be tracked, where I would argue some other forms of ESG measurement are too backward looking and don't actually really have the same impact.
Well, this is excellent. I could talk on and on about this, because having a gateholder or gatekeeper, that will add this level of credibility and help. It only helps. It's going to help the companies raise money. It's going to help get the general population and public on side to realize. And Austin and I both been saying this. You want mining to happen in highly regulated areas, like coming home to North America, Nevada, because we have a say in it. If it's outside somewhere else where we have no say in it, and just because it's not in our backyard, we think, oh, I don't have to worry about it. No. We want to have a say in it. We want to have these criteria and to have it centralized, and where we can look and go, okay, now that I understand that this framework's in place, and I see this electric future and where we're going, and that pretty much all of the solutions for net zero to some extent are from mining, then okay, how do we do it properly? And that framework is being developed, and you've got this on Digby. And it's just a matter of kind of shouting out to the rooftops.
let me add one other thing, which is
yes.
an important element, because I'm sure a lot of your viewers will be directors or senior management within the mining space. The culture of corporate governance has always been principles based. At least it is in Canada and the UK. It's slightly different in the US. And because of the Paris Accord 5 years ago, the governments are moving ESG from a principles basis to a regulatory basis, which means the obligations on boards to, I think the word is to consider ESG in their decision making, is now becoming regulatory. And this affects every listed company, certainly, and arguably beyond that into the private world as well. So this effectively, simply, easily, and cost effectively addresses that straightforward corporate governance process, while at the same time simplifying some of the other processes as a board oversight, whether it's compensation, audit risk management, or just general corporate governance. So it's really important for us all to get ahead of the curve from an education point of view on corporate governance, and be aware that these obligations are coming and how to effectively address that, so we don't get tripped up.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Jamie. I really appreciate you taking the time and stopping midway through work as well to stop off and chat with us. And because this is the type of message we want to get out to people as well, because we talk to a lot of generalists as well and get them excited about this space. And knowing that this is out there, it answers a lot of questions very quickly and gets people a lot more comfortable, which is what we want.
It is. It's a great industry. It's got a long way. It's got such an exciting long future ahead of it. We can't get worse in other people's eyes, so therefore we can only get better.
Absolutely. There's only way is up, and here we go. Thank you so much for spending time and helping to educate us. I really appreciate it, Jamie. All the best. Enjoy your evening.
Thank you very much indeed to you both.
Thanks, Jamie. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.